Doctor Who has been around for more than 60 years, and in that time it has created one of the most detailed mythologies in science fiction. We've learned about Gallifrey, we've learned about Time Lords. We've watched the Doctor regenerate again and again, but every once in a while, Doctor Who drops a single line of dialogue that sends the entire fan base into chaos. One sentence or one idea. Something that makes fans stop and say, wait, did the Doctor really just say that? When that happens, something interesting usually follows. Fans start debating it, and they start arguing about it, and sometimes the fans try very hard to pretend it never happened. Tonight, I want to talk about one of those moments. But before we get to the line itself, we need to talk about something much, much bigger. And by the end of this video, you're going to arrive at a conclusion that might completely change the way you think about the Time Lords. Because this story may not just change the way you look at the Doctor. It might change the way you look at the Time Lords themselves. The Doctor has always been a mystery, even from the very beginning. In the earliest days of Doctor Who, we knew almost nothing about him. We didn't know where he came from. We didn't know what species he was, and we didn't even know his real name. And over time, we learned more. We discovered Gallifrey, and we discovered the Time Lords. We discovered regeneration. But the deeper Doctor Who goes into the Doctor's past, the stranger that past becomes. In modern Doctor Who, we were introduced to something that changed everything. The Timeless Child. Now, according to this story, the Doctor wasn't originally a Time Lord at all. The Doctor was a mysterious child discovered long ago by the people of Gallifrey, a child who possessed the ability to regenerate, an ability that the Gallifreyans eventually studied and built into their own species. In other words, Time Lords gained regeneration because of the Doctor. Their greatest biological ability came from the Doctor, which means the Doctor's origins are still unknown. That raises a fascinating question. Where did the Doctor really come from? Now, here's something else worth noticing. Look at every regeneration of the Doctor. Different faces, different personalities, different ages. But one thing never really changes. The Doctor always looks human. 2 arms, 2 legs, human facial structure, human emotions. Now think about that for a moment. Time Lords are supposed to be an alien species. Yet every regeneration we've ever seen still looks fundamentally human. Why? Is that coincidence? Or is it possible that the Doctor has always had a deeper connection to humanity than we realized? Now, this brings us to a moment in Doctor Who history that fans have been debating for nearly 30 years. A moment from the 1996 Doctor Who television movie. In this scene, the Doctor is just regenerated, and Grace is trying to understand what's happening. She just watched a man die, and then come back as someone completely different. So naturally, she's confused and frightened. And in that moment, the Doctor says something unexpected.
I'm half human on my mother's side.
He really said that. Now, when that line aired, a lot of Doctor Who fans nearly fell off the couch instead of hiding behind it. And longtime fans will know exactly what that means. For years, people joked that the Doctor Who was the show that made children hide behind the sofa. But this time, the shock wasn't coming from the monsters. It was coming from the Doctor himself. Because for the first time, the show suggested something completely different about the Doctor. That he might not be entirely alien. That he might actually be half human. Now, there are a few ways to interpret that moment. One possibility is that the Doctor was simply trying to reassure Grace. Think about what she just witnessed. I mean, someone dies and then regenerates into a completely different person. So when the doctor tells her he's half human, maybe he's trying to make himself seem less alien, less frightening, more relatable. And honestly, that would be very much in the character for the doctor. The doctor has always had a deep connection to humanity. He spends more time on Earth than almost any other planet. Many of his closest friends have been human. So maybe that line wasn't meant literally at all. Maybe it was emotional. Maybe it was symbolic. But what if it wasn't? So let's take this idea one step further, because when you combine that line with the timeless child story, something very interesting starts to happen. Remember what we learned. The doctor's ability to regenerate became the foundation of Time Lord biology. In other words, Time Lords gained their greatest ability from the doctor. That ability had to come from somewhere. It had to come from the doctor's genetic makeup. So now, let's connect the dots. The doctor says he's half human. The doctor is the source of Time Lord regeneration. And Time Lords inherited that ability from the doctor, which means their biology was built from the doctor's biology. And that leads to a very strange possibility. If the doctor really is half human, and Time Lords inherited their regenerative ability from the doctor, then that ability had to come from the doctor's DNA, which means something from the doctor's genetic origin exists inside every Time Lord. And if the doctor truly is half human, then the conclusion becomes unavoidable. Every Time Lord would carry some human DNA. In other words, the Time Lords themselves might all be part human. Now, I'm not saying Doctor Who has officially confirmed this, but Doctor Who has a long history of planning strange ideas that take decades to pay off. So maybe that one strange line from the 1996 movie wasn't just a random piece of dialogue. Maybe it was a clue about the Doctor's true origins, and maybe about the true origins of the Time Lords themselves. But now I want to hear from you. Do you think the Doctor really is half human? Was the line just meant to comfort Grace, or could it actually reveal something deeper about the Time Lords? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoy looking at Doctor Who from a slightly different perspective, you're in the right place. Because here on the Unconventional Whovian, we talk about the ideas other fans sometimes overlook. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.